Hello and welcome to STI Love to Drive. Today we're going to take a look at the post-production editing process I use after recording the audio and video from my Backroads drives. I use a piece of software called DaVinci Resolve. What you see here is the main window. This is an untitled project. Things to note: there are no clips in the media pool. And down along the bottom of the window you will see media, cut, edit, fusion, color, fairlight, and deliver. These are the various aspects or areas within Resolve that allow you to manipulate different parts of the process as it relates to video, audio, effects, and ultimately exporting it to a finished product. So we'll step through the ones that I use the most. I will show you where I start and my end point. So I go into this process with the end goal of producing a few different types of products or content, areas of content. At the middle of the screen, you will note that some of my previous works are there, but there is also an option for untitled project. So this is how you would create a new project. I'm going to use an existing one from the most recent drive through St. Albans, Missouri as the reference point for the examples and demonstrations that I will soon show you. The first thing you will notice is the clips in the media pool will populate, and there will be a few different types of clips. Take a look and you'll notice these are audio tracks. So this is from the Zoom R4 multi-track recorder that I use, which is connected to dual external microphones, one which sits at the base of the windshield right around here. So this is what I call the intake side mic. And then on the back, it is usually toward the right side of the bumper, about halfway up the bumper. I use gaffer's tape to secure the line, and that has not caused me any issues so far as it relates to the paint, and does a really nice job of holding those microphones in place. Next, I want to point out there are 3 different clips. These were from the GoPro, video, and audio, but I don't use the audio from those except to sync up the tracks. So I cannot start the audio and video at the exact same time, which means I need to find a signature in the audio tracks that I can align, and I force that by closing the passenger side door, because both the GoPro microphone and the intake side microphones will pick up that sound. It's very easy for me when I come in here and look at something like on this waveform. It stands out very clearly. I clipped it away so we can't see it right now, but it is there, and that's what I use to ensure that the audio and video tracks are aligned. Some devices, I will point out, will put a time code on the media itself, whether it's a video or audio file that you need to import into the project, and you can align based upon the timestamp or the time code of those files, which is like a guaranteed way they'll automatically be in sync. I believe my Zoom R4 is not marking the files, so I need to check a setting on that, because I can't get them to sync through time code or timestamp or even waveform. But I do it manually and it works out fine. Moving on. Once I have imported the tracks that I need, I then create a timeline. You can see there's a master timeline up here. This is what I work from at the very start, and then I duplicate this in order to create the other timeline. So I consider this sort of like the master timeline, and from here I will refine primarily the audio and the video aspects. This is where the editing comes into play. The raw audio from the Zoom R4 is pretty good, but it needs to be refined because there's a lot of road noise and stuff that comes through, especially on the treble side of the EQ spectrum, and it's pretty easy to pull that out, and it definitely cleans up the audio. I'll show you that here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and create a new timeline. I'm going to create a new timeline, and we'll just call this the sample timeline. Create. And you can see there's nothing populated down here within the timeline itself. So let's take the video, the very first video track, and then we'll take an audio track, and let's see. Okay, I will drag this one. I'm actually going to drag it down here, the bottom of the screen, because it's a little easier to make sure it doesn't append to the audio track 2. See this? Like, you can't get it in. I guess you can. Like that. That works out. All right, so now those are all aligned. But that doesn't mean that they're synced. So let me show you how I sync the waveform itself. Take a look right here. Just at first glance, I know when I start my recordings, I like to close the door right around 5 seconds after starting the recording. So I know, like, if I look at the between 4 and 6 seconds in the waveform, I should see the signature. It'll be easy to match up. So we see right here this little peak and a little peak here. If I play the audio, just take a listen. You'll hear it close once and then a second close. Okay. This audio is from the GoPro. These two are from the external mics. Audio track 2 is intake, audio track 3 is exhaust. So I'm going to select the intake and exhaust, move them over, get it pretty close. I'm going to hop over to the edit tab because it's a little easier to see here, and just zoom in on the waveform. And I think that's probably about as close as it's going to get. Right there. All right. So now, if I back out of this, we should only hear the one click. And as you can hear, the audio seems to be aligned with the video. And then I mute this audio 1 track. It's not entirely necessary to keep this audio track around. What you will notice and what I'll show you is that these two are linked together, and you can unlink them by right-clicking and select Link Clips. And then I can select each one individually. If I wanted to delete this, I could do that by selecting the track, hitting backspace, and then I right-click on audio track 1 and delete empty tracks. That bounces these up to audio tracks 1 and 2. So now I have my video and audio that are synced. We'll just confirm that again. Find an interesting point in the timeline here. Pretty simple so far, right? All right, let's see. As I mentioned before, audio track 1 is the intake side, so there's going to be less noise on this when it's not kind of like high boost or boost building scenario. It's usually just trebly road noise and wind because it's out here in the open. And let's see here. Okay, I think this is when I got on the highway. So you can see a spike here where it starts to clip a little bit. That means the intake side mic is hot, as in getting a lot of action. So let's have a listen, raw audio here. This might blow your ears out, so forewarning, turn down the volume a little bit and then ease it back up to where it was. Brutal. I mean, it doesn't sound terrible, but it can be improved, as you will see here momentarily. All right, let's hop over to the fairlight portion of DaVinci Resolve. This brings us to what we'll use for, this is like our toolbox for audio related settings. I'm gonna back it up here, sorry about that, and then zoom in this little slider over here. I just drag that to the right. And what I'm looking for here is to capture a portion of the audio which I can just loop over and continually refine using my options like a compressor, which is what I generally apply to at the very least the exhaust side track, and then also I will refine some settings with the EQ in order to, as I mentioned before, bring down the treble side and reduce gain in some cases. All right, so in order to select a portion to loop, first let's select the loop option here, and then the crosshair if it's not already selected. Then down here, anywhere in the gray portion, empty area, I can click and drag, and you'll see a portion of the track highlights, as well as this little, you'll see like a little green bar here. You can click these little dots. Ooh, sorry about that. And use that to expand or contract the area which will be looping. So first thing first, let's throw a compressor on the exhaust side because it's incredibly loud right now. We do that by understanding again that audio track 2 is the exhaust portion, and I'm going to solo this out before I do that. I hit the little S button here. That ensures that playback will only come from audio track 2. I'm working on that by itself right now. I don't want to hear the intake side. I just want to refine the exhaust, get that where it needs to be. Then I'll isolate the intake side and refine that as well. So we've isolated the exhaust, and we're going to select the effects, dynamics, multi-band compressor. I know from experience and in order to spare your ears that this needs to come down about 10 decibels. I always put the microphones in the same general area on the car, so it's a predictable set of events when I'm doing this sort of post-production. And I can create presets of things like this compressor or the EQ, as I'll show you in a moment, and then just reuse those presets and reduce the amount of time it takes me to get what I want, because in theory the mic should be picking up the same spectrum of noise in all the scenarios. Maybe it differs from time to time. I haven't really experienced that yet, but for having presets, once you find a good sound, makes this process way faster. So I've dropped it down about 10 decibels, and now let's go ahead and enter the loop. All right, now I'm going to disable the compressor and you'll get an idea of what it sounds like without that. So once again, brace your ears. much more tolerable when we have the compressor enabled, but there's still a little bit of sharpness, I think, that we can pull out of that, which is coming from the top end of the spectrum here. So double click the little blue line here within the track 2 effects and dynamics portion, and that will launch the equalizer for audio track 2. And then I'm going to bring down the treble pretty significantly here, and let's just loop this through. I think it also reduces the road noise pretty significantly. We definitely don't want the road noise coming through at all, but most of what's happening here on the back end is mid-range and bass. Okay, I think that's in a relatively decent spot. We can refine that more later if needed, but I kind of want to see what the intake side sounds like. So let's solo out audio track 1 and open up the EQ for that. First thing I notice is all of this noise coming from the low end and mid range. So we're going to pull that out. Next, there's, hissing from the Valvetrain. We still want to preserve some of the spooling action and induction noise from the intake, but it does help to bring down the very top end of this spectrum because there's a ton of Valvetrain and especially road and wind. All right, doesn't sound like much all by itself, but let's combine the two and see. Let's back this up a little bit as well and see if we can capture a little bit more of the turbo spool. This was a no lift shift from second to third. So there wasn't much, like the turbo was already spooled at that point, and it was pretty high up in the RPM range. Pretty clean. Hopefully you see where I'm going at, trying to get at with this. It really is all personal preference. My ear may not be as good as someone else's or whatever it may be, but the key here is spending time refining these curves. I have a preset here, a number of presets actually, but like for instance, this one is pretty extreme, but it worked out really well. Let's give it a listen. It's a little bit more subtle. What I will say is that I used this EQ on the intake side with a different exhaust EQ and some various other changes, but most importantly, export tests. So, next step. Let's say I want to test this out on my phone or various other devices. I have this little section still highlighted, and with it still highlighted, I'm going to go over here to cut and then quick export. And you can see right here, it's showing right around 8.5 seconds because it's only going to export what I have selected. When I click that, I generally just go with the default here, the H264 in codec, and then confirm it's 60 frames per second, 4K, 9 seconds. So yes, that matches what we see right here. And then I export, save the file, so on and so forth. And then I will upload it to my phone or whatever it may be. I'll play it through a variety of different sources in order to ensure that it sounds all right. And then if it doesn't sound great, you know, some things that I hear on my headphones don't come through on bookshelf speakers. And some of that stuff doesn't come through or comes through too much on my sound bar and sub. Hopefully that has been informative on the audio side, and now I'll show you kind of my process for getting to the end goal, which is effectively 3 different outputs, 3 different types of content. First, I'm going to just delete the sample timeline because I don't need it anymore. Okay. So as I mentioned, I start with a master timeline, which if we're pretending, we could use sample timeline, the one that I had just created. I get that audio where I want it to be, and then I right click and I select duplicate. So you can see I have one called All the Boost. I have one called All the Boost Shorts. One called Only the Chill Cruising. I can switch between these by selecting the drop down here at the middle top portion of the cut window pane and see the list of available timelines. If I bounce over to All the Boost, most notably, you'll see the resolution has changed. So this is for just a normal full 4K resolution output. All the Boost Shorts is just All the Boost duplicated, and then I modified this right here. This is it's basically the timeline resolution. I selected custom timeline settings. Sometimes you have to deselect use project settings and then check use vertical resolution. It takes what was the natural resolution of your media and turns it into the equivalent for vertical. And then if there's a mismatch, you can take certain actions. So in this case, it was stretch frame to all corners. I don't know if I like that too much. I usually go with center crop with no resizing, and it gives a more like natural pleasing view. And then I have the ability to quick export these, and you'll see that it's a different resolution. It's going to export it in short form. All right, next thing I will point out, there are markers all across this timeline, and those are the points of interest that I marked after doing the audio refining and editing. So after I've duplicated that master timeline for some other use, which in this case is All the Boost and All the Boost Shorts, I then watch the entire video, or at the very least, I kind of skim the waveforms looking for these types of signatures on the intake side, because as we talked about before, this indicates load on the engine. So I look for those, and then I mark them as kind of like points of interest. And then I will cut using the scissor option right here. I'll cut at the marker and then delete all of the gaps, anything that I don't care about. Now on the other side of that, these are, let's say, All the Boost and All the Boost Shorts are 2 of the 3 things that I want to come out of this drive, like this back road and things that I plan to put on YouTube. The third is Only the Chill Cruising, which if you take a guess, is all of the chill cruising. So you can see the intake mic side here is basically nothing. I'm only bringing the exhaust through, and I've gone so far as reducing the gain on the intake side 27.91 decibels, which allows a little bit of road noise to come through and in some cases, a little of the turbo noise, like some turbo spool. But this is all of me just chill cruising the road. You want to hear the rumble of the exhaust. It's nothing crazy. This is more like I could fall asleep to this, right? And I mark those out using these light blue sections. So if you were to look, I think, pop over to timeline 1. Yeah, this is a combination of all the boost and only the chill cruising. So you can see here at the beginning, that was a chill spot. Couple moments of interest here, another chill spot, a bunch. This is when I got into St. Albans itself, and then another, like it ends with chill cruising here. So I kind of notch all of these things, and then I'll go through and cut it up on the cloned or duplicated timelines, and then start exporting video from there. The only other thing that I'll touch on, and there's so much to this that I don't know. It's pretty crazy, actually. Like, the effects portion of this application seems pretty insane, and I can't even begin to fathom how some of it works. So I'll show you titles, simple text. Right, over here, as you'll notice, I'm on the edit pane now. You can see, let me deselect this. You can see there are a couple slightly different looking elements on the timeline. And then when I'm in that range, as I zoom in here, one of them is a center reveal effect, and the other one is called blueprints. So that's what gives me, this is blueprints right here, and this is the center reveal. So those exist on the timeline with the video tracks. There's a separate portion of the timeline for the audio. And then these areas right here, this is where it fades in. You can see it fading in a little bit there. You just do that by dragging this white marker. And it's on both sides. So I fade it in. If I select this element for blueprints, you can see over here under video title, there's the blueprints resource, and then the text itself, along with a bunch of stuff for styling the text. Lots of different options to modify. And then this one, center reveal, is called all the boost. So if we play this, you get something like that. And that's how that works. Again, I am no expert. If I'm going about this poorly and you know more than me, please drop a comment. I'm always trying to learn and make this easier on myself. So yeah, I hope it's been helpful. Thanks for joining me along this ride. It's been really interesting. From concept, after I first bought my STI in June of 2024, one of the first things that came to mind was it would be awesome to record video of driving around on back roads, because I do a lot of it. It's a way that I clear my mind, and take it easy. Peace.